The cosmos is within us. We are made of star stuff. We are a way for the universe to know itself. Now, read that again, slowly. The universe knowing itself. Through us. That is not a scientific statement. That is a mystical one. And it was written by the man who spent his entire career telling the world to stop believing in mysticism. His name was Carl Sagan. And the most interesting thing about him is not what he believed. It's what he couldn't stop saying, even when he was trying not to. Born 1934, Brooklyn. Astrophysicist, cosmologist, author, Cornell professor for decades, NASA consultant on multiple missions, Pioneer, Voyager, Viking. He was formerly a materialist. The universe is matter and energy. No souls, no gods, no mystical forces. What exists is what can be measured, and he defended that position aggressively. He went after astrology, after faith healing, after UFO conspiracy theories, after pseudoscience of every kind. His 1995 book, The Demon-Haunted World, is essentially a manual for dismantling magical thinking. Chapter by chapter, belief by belief. He was the establishment's favorite skeptic, the man you called when you needed the irrational thing explained away. And then you read what he actually wrote, and something doesn't add up. Here's where it gets strange. Cosmos aired in 1980. 13 episodes, watched by 500 million people. Still one of the most watched documentary series in history. The science in it is real, rigorous, accurate. But listen to the language. The sky calls to us. If we do not destroy ourselves, we will one day venture to the stars. Somewhere, something incredible is waiting to be known. For small creatures such as we, the vastness is bearable only through love. These are not the words of a man who thinks the universe is just matter in motion. These are the words of someone who looked at the cosmos and felt something that the periodic table cannot explain. He never called it that. In every sentence, a reverence so complete it functions as religion without using any of the words. In 1990, Sagan convinced NASA to turn the Voyager 1 spacecraft around. It was 3.7 billion miles from Earth, about to leave the solar system. He asked them to point the camera back, to take one last photograph. In the image, a pale blue dot, Earth, suspended in a sunbeam, barely visible. Sagan wrote a reflection on that photograph. It is, depending on your frame, either the most scientific or the most spiritual text of the 20th century. He wrote, "Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves." No hint that help will come from elsewhere. That line is doing two things at once. It's a scientific statement, and it's a moral one, almost a commandment. That's not astronomy. That's theology. Written by a man who didn't believe in theology. Here's what the record shows. Sagan spent decades on SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, publicly, with scientific funding. He testified before Congress. He co-wrote the message on the Voyager Golden Record, the sounds and images sent into deep space in case something, someday, finds them. He wrote Contact, a novel, later a film, about first contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. The protagonist is a scientist. The experience she has is structurally indistinguishable from a religious vision. Sagan wrote that deliberately. He said so. This is the same man who publicly dismantled UFO claims, who wrote chapters on why eyewitness testimony is unreliable, who treated every extraordinary claim with rigorous skepticism, and who privately maintained, until he died, that the universe almost certainly contains other minds. That contact with them would be the most important event in human history, that it was worth decades of his life to look. The skeptic and the believer were the same person. He just believed in the one thing that his framework technically allowed. In 1971, an essay was published in a book called Marijuana Reconsidered. The author was listed as Mr. X, Anonymous. The essay described in careful detail how cannabis produced genuine philosophical insight. Mathematical ideas arrived whole. Music revealed hidden structure. The nature of consciousness became temporarily transparent. The author wrote, "I had a very accurate and detailed recollection of what it was like to be a small baby. Sights, sounds, tastes, textures I hadn't thought about for decades. There was a smell of urine, an unfocused visual world." After Sagan died in 1996, his friend Lester Grinspoon confirmed, X was Carl Sagan. The man who told the world to demand evidence was privately using altered states of consciousness to access what he described as genuine insight. I'm not saying that's a contradiction. I'm saying it's a gap. And the gap is interesting. Here's what I keep coming back to. Sagan built his life on a distinction: evidence versus feeling, reason versus revelation, the known versus the believed. And yet his most enduring contribution to culture isn't a scientific paper. It's a feeling. The feeling of smallness and connection. The feeling that the universe is not indifferent, that it is, in some way that can't quite be articulated, ours. He produced that feeling in 500 million people using a television show about physics, which raises a question he never quite answered. If pure reason, followed far enough, produces something that looks and feels like the sacred, what exactly is the difference? Carl Sagan died on December 20th, 1996, pneumonia following a bone marrow disease. He was 62. He never got the signal. His wife, Anne Druyan, described his final days. She said there was no deathbed conversion, no reaching for religion. He faced it, she said, the same way he faced everything, with curiosity. She wrote, he never sought to shield himself from the pain of living without false comfort. No false comfort. That was the line he held, his whole life. And yet, he wrote this: "We are a way for the cosmos to know itself." I don't know what that is, if not comfort. True comfort, the hardest kind. The kind with no promise attached. Just the universe, looking at itself, through you.